Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about a different type of abuse. This type of abuse is called truancy. It seems kind of like a waste of time to talk about truancy, I think, because it's kind of obvious, not to mention that in most, if not all states, it's a crime. But I wanted to talk about it simply because I've had experience with this in my life, and my experience was kind of unique, and it's one that I think can help shed light on the damage that can come with growing up without a proper education. So truancy does fall again underneath the umbrella of neglect because you are failing to give your child something that they need. In this case, education, which gives them the opportunity to go into the adult world here in the United States and become successful, gives them the opportunity to support themselves, etc., etc. In my situation, when I was growing up, I was homeschooled. Homeschooling is not the same thing as truancy. However, in my case, it was. Reason being is my dad didn't have an education. My dad didn't even finish high school, so he didn't have any way to teach us while we were at home to homeschool us. And even if he did, he had no interest in doing so because he didn't like kids and didn't want anything to do with us. My mom was the person that homeschooled us primarily. She would work and then come home in the evenings, and we would do classes, and we had full curriculums that you can get for homeschoolers, just like curriculums that you would get in a regular school. But my mom had to support our family for a very long time, and she took a couple of jobs in order to do that because my dad refused to get a job. I think I've mentioned in some videos before that my dad had bipolar disorder. He was also a very unhealthy four. So the short version of that story is he thought that he was too good to have to hold down a 9-to-5 job like everybody else, and he just stayed home and did whatever he wanted to do, or he would go out and have affairs and cheat on my mom. And so it was my mom's responsibility not only to work, but to give an education to my sister and I. After a few years, I think my mom was just tired. She was worn out in life, which I completely understand given those circumstances. And she just stopped homeschooling us. I don't think that I took any classes or followed any sort of curriculum any time after the 8th grade. My entire high school year, which for me wound up being the ages 15 to 17, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, was literally me sitting at home, sleeping in until noon, eating bowls of Fruit Loops, watching whatever I wanted to watch on TV, going swimming in the backyard, whatever it is that I wanted to do. I didn't touch a curriculum of any kind from the time that I was 15 to 17 years old. Now, with that being said, I was and still am a voracious reader, and I've always enjoyed reading nonfiction. Fiction's always been boring to me. I mean, my thinking has always been if you're going to read, then you may as well learn while you're doing it. You know what I mean? Two birds with one stone, but that's just me. So I read a lot of things and learned a lot of things that most people my age at that time didn't even know existed to learn about. So I did come out of high school well educated, just educated in really weird things that, again, most people my age didn't even know that they could learn about. So in my case, when I turned 17, it occurred to me I will never graduate high school because I haven't gone to high school. So I decided to go and get my GED. I scheduled the GED. I walked into the GED testing center, sat down, took the test. They send the results down to the capital of the state. It's Austin here. I'm in Texas. They grade it. It takes 6 weeks to get it back. I get the GED back, and I've got perfect scores on almost everything. So the truancy in my case, in terms of having an educational opportunity that would create a foundation that would allow me to build a life for myself, didn't affect me at all. I went from passing my GED the first time I took it, and I went immediately and enrolled in a junior college and did 2 years there. And then after that, I was immediately accepted into SMU, which is Southern Methodist University. And for those of you that don't know, that is the Harvard of Texas. It's very, very difficult to get accepted into that school. And not only did I get accepted into that school, but I got accepted first round based on absolutely nothing but GED scores, and I had to write an entrance essay, an application essay. So based on those two things alone, I got accepted first round into the hardest school to get into in the state of Texas, which is a huge deal. And from there, I've graduated and I moved on and am working on my master's degree right now in licensed professional counseling. I've gotten certified training as a life coach. I've gotten training from a counseling center that did training on how to use the Enneagram in psychotherapy and in counseling situations. I continue to read lots of nonfiction books and know a lot about a lot of really weird shit that most people don't know about. So in my particular case, the truancy that I experienced did not, in my opinion, have a negative effect in terms of my education. But I understand that I'm the exception to the rule, which is why I'm making this video, because I am the exception to the rule. You can't take a child out of school and intend to homeschool them and not do that and expect that child to have the same advantages in life that other children are going to have when they grow up and become adults. A more typical example of this would be my sister. She was also pulled out of school and she was homeschooled. However, she was 4 years younger than me. So at the time that she was taken out of school and she was homeschooled, she was in the first grade. So she went from the first grade all the way up through high school, and same with me. She, for a few years, had a curriculum that she was doing with my mom, and she was advancing and going up, different grades and learning different things. But about the time that my mom was so exhausted that she couldn't spend the time that it took with us each night after work to, have class or do homework or whatever it was, same thing with my sister. She didn't get that time anymore either. Now, my sister's a different situation. She today is 28 years old. She does not have a high school diploma. She doesn't have a GED. And she has always hopped around from the time that she was 16 to present time, from retail jobs and waitressing and any sort of little job that she can get to make some kind of money. I mean, I don't know that she's ever made any more than maybe $12 an hour, which is not a lot of money. You know what I mean? You can't sustain yourself that way. She's going to have one or more roommates until she can get a job where she's making a significant amount of money to support herself. But with that being said, I sometimes have a hard time feeling sorry for her, because I was in the same situation and I decided that I wanted that opportunity for myself. So I got up and I made it happen. She, being 28 years old, is still very bitter about the lack of opportunity that she had educationally. And she does have every right to be, because again, it is a form of neglect. But she's never made any efforts to go and actually change it either. You know what I mean? She can go and take the GED just like I can. And she's chosen not to do that, and that's on her. But still, the effect that the lack of educational exposure had on her is real, and it was real on me as well. The difference between the two of us is I just decided to do something about it, that's all. But I tell you both of those stories to highlight the fact that truancy is considered a form of neglect, and it is important even though nobody's talking about it. And I would even argue that situations especially like mine are probably more common in homeschooling families than other types of families. Certainly not all, but I would argue that if truancy is going to be common in any particular population, homeschool kids is probably where it's going to be popular at. So it's something to look out for. It is a really serious thing. Send your kids to school, give them an education, give them an opportunity at the best life that they can possibly have in the United States of America, this wonderful country that is built on capitalism. So that's a little bit about truancy and why it's important.